Hello, friends. Thank you for joining me today. For props, you may want a couple of blocks and any items you may want for a cozy shavasana at the end. Once you have gathered your props, find yourself in a comfortable seated position. Whether this is sitting with your legs crossed or in hero's pose, finding yourself there, softening your gaze or closing your eyes if you feel comfortable, and slowly begin to drop into your breath. Breathing deep into your belly and your back, feeling it rise up into your rib cage, all the way around and into your lungs. And then exhale it out. Letting go of whatever you carried into this practice today. Allowing yourself to be present in His presence. Continuing to find this breath. We're looking at the story of Gideon today. And Gideon's story starts in Judges chapter 6, and he's in a few more chapters after that. But we're going to look at the beginning of his story. Gideon is an Israelite, and at the time the Midianites were oppressing them. And we find Gideon threshing wheat in a wine press. Now, why would he be doing that? Because he was afraid of his enemy, so he was hiding. And the really cool thing about this is that even in his fear, God found him and wanted to use him. So while he is doing this, it picks up in verse 12 of chapter 6. It says, "And the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said to him, 'The Lord is with you, O mighty man of valor.'" There was nothing brave about what Gideon was doing in this moment. So why would God call him, "O mighty man of valor"? I think the key is found in the first part of that sentence, "The Lord is with you." We find our peace and we find our strength and our courage in Him and in His presence. On an inhale, reaching your arms up overhead. Exhale, bringing them back down to your heart. Inhale, arms up overhead, placing your right hand on the mat and stretching over, opening up in your left side body, making sure that both hip bones are glued to your seat so you're not tipping over, but that you have a solid foundation. Inhale, arms overhead, and placing your left hand down will open up on the right side body, again, rooting those hips into your mat. You may release those, and placing your left hand on your right knee, we'll find a spinal twist here. So your left hand on your right knee, right hand is behind you, supporting you. Inhaling will lengthen your spine. Exhale will release space for that rotation, letting your eyes lead the rotation first. Once you have reached that point that your body's telling you to stop, find your breath there. The Lord is with you, a mighty man of valor. Even in your fear, you can be called brave and courageous because the Lord is with you. Release that twist, and we'll do this on the opposite side. So right hand on left knee, left hand behind you. If you feel yourself tipping back at all during this rotation, this twist, Then maybe ease out of it a little bit, just so that you're more upright. Again, rooting those hip bones, those sits bones to your mat. Finding your breath here. You can release that out. Dropping your chin to your chest slowly. Begin drawing a circle with your chin to your right shoulder, tipping your ear, then drawing that line in the air until your neck is open, your throat is open, and then ear to your opposite shoulder, and bringing that chin back down. And then drawing this line in the opposite direction, just waking up our necks gently. Once you have finished your circle, go ahead and just rotate your wrists, wiggle those fingers, rotate your feet, and wiggle those toes. And then find yourself in a table position on your mat. We're going to find some cat-cow here. So on an inhale, tipping your pelvis towards your thighs, lowering your belly, reaching those shoulder blades together and opening up your heart, releasing those fears, and receiving that courage that we find in the presence of God. Tipping that pelvis toward your belly, engaging your lower belly if you would like, arching your back, opening up in those shoulder blades, and tipping your chin to your chest. Find your cat. Move through these a few more times on your own, at your own breath. As we continue in this story with Gideon, it says that Gideon chooses to test God because he's unsure of what's going on. And once he does, he freaks out. So I'm looking at the Bible recap here by Tara Lee Cobble, which I highly recommend. And it says that, wow, Gideon realizes whom he's dealing with and panics. But God tells him to receive his peace. So what does Gideon do? Gideon builds an altar and calls it the Lord is Peace. I love this story of Gideon because instead of rebuking Gideon for every time he asks for a sign or he shows his fear, God confirms who God is, displacing that fear. Go more into that in a moment. Find a still table here and extend your right leg out to the side, any degree, and then inhale forward, rocking your body forward, and then exhale, reaching your hips back, kind of like a child's pose. And do this 2 more times. Forward with your breath, inhaling, exhale, hips back. Once more, forward, and then back. This time back up into your table and reach that right leg behind you, and again forward and back 3 times, finding space in those various leg muscles and maybe even in your feet. Rocking forward and back. Now we're going to turn this into a supported side plank. So kickstanding that left foot behind you, reaching that right leg, right foot all the way down, your whole foot, lifting in your hips and in your rib cage and extending that right arm up. Finding an opening again in that chest, so perhaps reaching that right foot behind you a little bit, along with your right arm, exposing those fears that we have, and realizing that you are in the presence of the Lord. There is peace and there is courage. Find yourself back into that table position, and we'll do this on the other side. So extend your left leg out to the side. Again, any angle is fine, and it may be different on this side than the other, and that's fine, normal. Forward and back 3 times, following that breath. Inhaling God's courage, exhaling our fears. It says in the New Testament, I believe, I want to say 1 John perhaps, that perfect love casts out all fear. Perfect love is only found in Jesus. So when we spend time with Him, He casts out that fear. He releases it from us and fills us with His perfect love. Extending that leg behind you, forward and back a few times here. Again, finding some space. Finding that fear that is tucked deep in the nooks and crannies of your body and releasing it out. Once you've done that a few times, find your supported side plank on this side. And again, maybe try reaching that left foot just a little bit behind you so you're still supported by your whole foot and your knee that's on the mat and your hand. But see if finding some opening in that front, opening up your heart, can help you let go of some of those fears. Become aware of them first even, and then let them go. And receive His peace and His courage. Once you are complete with that, find your table once more. This time tucking your toes, lifting your hips, reaching up and back into downward dog, bending your knees as much as you need or want. Perhaps pedaling out your legs here. This is your first downward dog, so be gracious with yourself. You won't be here long. Finding that breath that we started with. Roll forward into a plank and then step to the top of your mat with as many steps as you would like into a forward fold. You can try hanging here for just a moment, perhaps grabbing opposite elbows. Then slowly root to rise until you're standing in mountain. On an inhale, arms up overhead. Exhale, right foot back into a high lunge. Bending in the front knee. You're welcome to bend that back knee too as much as you would like for stability. Finding some space between where your feet are. So you're not on a tightrope, more like railroad tracks. And those railroad tracks can be as wide or as narrow as you would like. Then you're going to reach your hands down so that they're framing that front foot. Your back knee stays lifted. And then you're going to twist this high lunge if you'd like, or you can stay in this lunge if you'd like. But if you would like to add the rotation, go ahead and lift up that left arm. Again, opening up our hearts, offering up that fear and receiving the courage and peace that God has for us. Well done. And place that left hand back on the mat and then find your way back up into the high lunge. Might be wobbly, and that's all right. We're going to pivot that back foot so we find ourselves in a warrior two. Front knee bent, back leg is straight, hips are even, arms are extended. On an inhale, flip that front palm up as we reverse warrior. Breathe. Back to warrior two. And then find yourself in a side angle, so bending that front arm, tipping forward, and finding that breath. Find yourself back up. And then releasing your your front foot so it matches your back foot. So all your toes are pointing to the long edge of your mat. Slight bend in your knees, hinging at the hips. Find yourself in a wide-legged forward fold. You can find movement here. You can bend your knees as much as you would like. I love that Once God has confirmed being Gideon's source of peace, that Gideon builds an altar. He builds himself a reminder to look back on when that fear starts to creep again. Is there a place in your life where you could build an altar to God's peace? A reminder of who He is, so that when your fear comes back, as it always does, you have something to look to and to remember that, yes, God is my peace. God is my courage. Where could we place those in our lives and for others to see as well? Placing your hands on your thighs, slowly rolling back up. We're going to reverse this all the way back up to mountain. So warrior 2, high lunge, taking your time, stepping up into mountain. We'll do this on the opposite side. So stepping back with your right leg this time into a left foot into a high lunge, whatever the opposite is. Arms up overhead. You can stay here, or you can place your hands down on the mat, framing that front foot. Again, welcome to stay here, or you can rotate this lunge, lifting your right arm into the air. Keeping that back knee lifted. If that doesn't feel stable and you want to lower your back knee, go ahead. All right, placing that hand back on the mat, slowly finding your way back up. It's okay if you wobble. Let's find that warrior 2 on this side. The back foot arch should line up with the heel of the front foot. Front knee is bent, hips are even, arms are extended. Flip that front palm and reverse back into reverse warrior. Breathing here. Back into warrior 2. Find your side angle. That leg should just serve as a boundary more than a support. Back up to warrior 2. This time pivoting all 10 toes towards the long edge of your mat. Hinging at your hips into our wide-legged forward fold. Finding your breath here. I love how this devotion continues, saying that every time Gideon asks for confirmation that God is with him, that God is who He says He is, she writes, but God still doesn't rebuke him. Instead, He offers even more confirmation. Friend, God's not afraid of your questions. He's not afraid of your doubts. He's not afraid of your wondering or your curiosity. He understands that it's hard for us when we don't see how things are going to work out. But He is not going to rebuke you. He's not going to tell you off. He's not going to dismiss you. He loves you. And ultimately, His goal is a relationship with you. So He will do whatever it is that you need, even if we don't always enjoy it, to show you that He truly is who He says He is. Hands on your thighs, slowly rising back up into that warrior 2. High lunge, making your way up to a mountain. This time we're going to step back with our right foot again into a low lunge. So dropping that back knee. Hands will be around, framing that front foot. And then we're going to rock forward and back, opening up in our hips a little bit as we make our way into the lizard. So if you have those blocks, having them towards the top of your mat will be really helpful. So just rock here forward and back just like we were doing at the beginning. Once you've done that a few times, place your hands on the inside of that front foot. If you would like your blocks there, that's a great place to put them. We're going to lift ourselves up, back into a little bit of a back bend. And then you can lower down onto blocks, forearms, your hands, the mat, whatever. Finding this lizard pose here. You may find a little bit of relief if you externally rotate your front foot a little bit. So like point the toes out at an angle. That might release a little bit of pressure. You can stay in this lizard, or we can rotate it just like we did with the lunge. So you'll want to lift up your left arm. Finding your breath here. And your rotation can be any degree. It doesn't have to be all the way looking at your toes. If you want to, go for it. If your body allows for it. If it's just a little bit, that's great too. I believe that God honors our steps of faith, no matter what size they are. All right. Undo your rotation. We're going to slowly bring that back foot up to meet your front foot into a squat. If you would like one of those blocks or both blocks under your seat, you're welcome to do that. Using your elbows to widen your knees a little bit and having your hands at heart for prayer. The idea is that your spine is straight, not necessarily that you are straight up. All right. This time we're going to lunge back with the opposite foot, so your left foot, I believe. Once you get there, we're going to rock forward and back, just like we did before. Finding a little bit of space, just letting our body know where we're going, what we're doing. Finding the lizard on this side. Once you are done rocking forward and back, you can place those hands on the inside of your front foot. Again, using blocks, mat, forearms, lifting yourself up into just a little baby back bend, finding a little bit more space, and then releasing that back down. If you would like to rotate your lizard, opening up on your right arm, again, any amount. Finding your breath here. At any point you are moving through a shape where you cannot find your breath, ease off on it a little bit or even come out of it. Making sure that you have that breath is so important. Far more important than trying to hold a specific pose. All right. Going to bring that back foot back up front to find that squat again. So if you would like to use blocks under your seat, you're more than welcome to. You do not have to. Finding that squat. We won't be here long. Finding that breath. This time we're going to slowly place our hands on the mat and find our way by lifting up our hips into a forward fold. You can shift your feet however you would like. It's kind of loosey-goosey it out here. And a lot of intense, deep stretching here. So if you'd like to just kind of be a rag doll for a little bit, that could feel nice. Step back into plank. And then into a downward dog. And again, just kind of pedaling it out here. Releasing your knees down into table and then into child's pose. If you would like to use your blocks as a support under your forehead, that could feel nice. Knees can be together or wide apart. Just finding our breath here again. This devotional goes on to say that Gideon doubts God a lot, and God never gets angry with him for it. God meets him in his questions. He's never impatient with Gideon's doubts and fears. He comes alongside him to embolden him, knowing that what Gideon needs to hear most isn't, "You're awesome. You got this. Believe in yourself. You may be the least in your family, but it's just because they're jealous of you." No. Gideon needs to hear who God is. God doesn't counter Gideon's doubt by puffing him up with positive self-talk. He says, "I am with you, and he is with you, and he is where the joy is." You're welcome to stay in this child's pose, or you may find your back, reaching your legs straight up and just letting them relax up in the air for just a moment. Maybe you want to kind of rock them side to side just to find a little release in your lower back. Bringing your knees in again, rocking side to side here. Perhaps you would even like to turn this into a happy baby. Grabbing your feet, your big toes, your shins, continuing that rock and that rhythm. I love how she puts it that Gideon doesn't need to be puffed up or pumped up. He doesn't need to be told how great he is. He needs to be reminded of how great God is. And as nice as it is to build our confidence and to encourage one another, which we're totally supposed to do, we ultimately need to realize that anything good, anything that can help us, anything that is victorious in our lives comes from God. So when we begin to doubt, when we begin to fear, it's not about talking ourselves up, but it's about looking to the one who is true and real, who is always brave, who is always peace, who is always joy. And that is how we become men and women of valor. Go ahead and do your wiper knees here if you'd like. Just finding some final movements. Letting your body speak to you and show you where you might have a few more sticky spots. Where's that fear lingering? Find it, move in it, and give it to God. And in return, He gives you peace. And once you are done with your final movements, set yourself up for a super mega cozy shavasana. Maybe you like to just lay on your mat. That's wonderful. Maybe you like to have a pillow and blankets. However you like to have it set up, find yourself there. We'll be ending our practice in shavasana, so make it as comfortable as you would like. Going to give you the next 30 seconds to just rest, in the peace that God gives you and in the courage that He emboldens you with through His presence. I'll bring you back with my voice to close. Oh God, even with my fears still in tow, you remind me who you are. You are my peace. I thank you for my friend today. I pray that they would release their fears to you and receive your peace. May they go forward in peace, love, and joy. Amen.